Back to the budget battle that's unfolding this morning in Washington. President Obama summoning congressional leaders to the White House in less than 3 hours, trying to cut a compromise deal on a spending plan to avoid a government shutdown. Joining us this morning to discuss the differences between the Democrats and Republicans and how to bridge them, Texas Republican Jeb Hensarling, Vice Chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, and also Maryland Democrat Chris Van Hollen, the ranking member of the House Budget Committee. I'd like to begin with Congressman Hensarling, who's involved in these negotiations, the Republican here. Let's talk a little bit about the president trying to have a turning point here. Going to be talking to your colleagues later this morning, trying to get some sort of an agreement, get a deal going. Are we headed toward a government shutdown in your view? How likely is this?
Well, House Republicans have passed not one bill, but two bills that fully funds the government, that keeps the government open and begins the process of helping create jobs and put us on a fiscally sustainable path. Unfortunately, Harry Reid in the Senate, who's now had 5 to 6 weeks, they've done nothing. And even my third grader knows that you have to have a bill in the House and a bill in the Senate, and they come together. And so far, there's nothing in the Senate. So, you know, the president coming in, better late than never. Nobody wants to shut down the government, but we have to have a Senate bill. And I'm afraid that the Senate probably wants to have a shutdown. They think it's in their political best interest.
Are we going to have a shutdown on Friday? I mean, do you think you guys can bridge this gap? I mean, it sounds insurmountable to me. Are we going to have a shutdown?
Well, I hope not. You have to ask Harry Reid that question. We're putting forth another temporary continuing resolution to ensure that the troops get paid. But again, the Senate hasn't taken it up. We've passed the bill. The Democrats in the Senate have it, and the president's been AWOL.
Are you willing to accept less than $61 billion in cuts? Are you willing to meet someplace in the middle?
Well, we're not going to negotiate with ourselves. Again, the Democrats not only have they don't have a bill, they don't even have a plan. They put nothing on the table.
I'll tell you something,
but Americans.
So many Americans, though, hear us talking about this, and they hear process, the bill on the table. I mean, yes, like your third grader, they know how it works. We all know how it works. But when a poll from Pew Research shows that people just don't know who to blame about this. They're concerned about a potential shutdown, and they don't know who to blame. If the government shuts down, who do you blame the most? They were asked. 39% said Republicans, 36% said the Obama administration, 16% said both equally. Isn't it, do you risk that people see a government shutdown and they don't get your philosophical and ideological stand here? Instead, they just see Congress not doing its job.
When you talk about a stand, here's the stand we've taken. We've put forth a bill to fund the government. The Democrats in the Senate have it. I mean, those are just the facts. I think if the American people are armed with the facts, they will come, obviously, to the right conclusion. And what Republicans are trying to do in this budget is help create jobs. The anxiety about the debt, great debt leads to great taxes, which leads to great unemployment. If we want to create jobs today, we're going to have to put the nation on a fiscally sustainable path. So yes, do we have historic savings? Absolutely. Are they draconian? No. We fund the government at over 98% of last year's level.
Congressman, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And there's so many talking points on this subject that when we come to Friday, it'll be quite interesting to see if both parties can get over their talking points and get into figuring out how to make sure that the bills get paid and we keep moving forward. Congressman Hensarling, thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, so there are two sides to this budget battle. We're hearing this morning that Democrats are preparing their own spending bill to counter the one being released today by Republicans. So let's bring in Maryland Congressman, Democrat Chris Van Hollen, the ranking member of the House Budget Committee. Thanks for being with us, Congressman.
Good morning.
So you just heard from your colleague, Congressman Hensarling, saying that your colleagues in the Senate have done nothing, that they actually want a shutdown. Have you gotten any assurances from Senate Democratic leadership that they do want to get a deal done?
They're working very hard to avoid a shutdown. And you just heard from Jeb Hensarling when he asked him the question whether he was willing to move 1 inch off of their position, and he refused to answer the question. He basically said no. And so that has been the problem.
So what is the sense you're getting that Republicans in the House, under pressure from Tea Party members, really are going to move this toward a shutdown?
Well, that's exactly right, because what you have right now is the Tea Party wing of the Republican Party in the House saying it's our way or it's a shutdown. You've got to get 100% of what we demanded or we're going to shut down the government. And that's exactly what is now fueling this drive toward a shutdown. I really hope that cooler heads will prevail because if you go to a shutdown, it will create all sorts of problems around the country. It is a terrible thing to do when the economy is still in fragile recovery. And I'm just hoping that cooler heads on the House Republican side will prevail, and they will back off this idea that they've got to have every single demand or they'll shut it down.
But see, and when you hear their point of view, they're saying it's not every single demand. It's that if we don't make these unpleasant cuts that Democrats are not willing to accept, at some point we just run out of money. I mean, they're arguing, don't you have to say no at some point?
Well, first of all, as you know, the Democrats have put lots of these cuts on the table. Secondly, it's a question of what you're going to cut. They want to cut things like education funding. They want to cut cancer research at NIH. We've said you've got to broaden the field. You've got to look at some of the big subsidies to agriculture. You need to look at the subsidies to the oil and gas industry, taxpayer giveaways. I mean, look, gas prices are through the roof.
I know, but, you know, that's a difficult issue because, you know, the gas companies and the oil companies will make the argument that those subsidies help them pump billions of dollars into our government. You know, they don't, when they start building the infrastructure for oil, they're not sure what oil prices will be. I mean, so, you know, it is difficult. But the thing that I do want to ask you about is at some point, aren't you all going to be blamed if the government shuts down, veterans stop getting their checks? I mean,
this would be bad for everybody. There's no doubt about that. But you know, you kind of glossed over that last point, which is, as Jeb Hensarling said, they're trying to focus on a very, very narrow piece of the budget. They don't want to talk about cuts to things like subsidies for the oil companies. And so if we're really going to have a conversation about reducing the deficit, you need everything on the table. And what they're saying is, we're going to only argue about this one little piece of the budget that deals with education funding, that deals with things like research into cancer, cures and treatments. And so they refuse to broaden the conversation, and that is creating the problems. But you heard what they said. He refused to say that they would budge 1 inch, and that's the problem we've got. The Democrats have already come a long way, Democrats in the House and in the Senate, but they're demanding 100%.
I wonder if at the end of the day, you know, the House GOP will not at least try to come to the table. We'll see what happens today when President Obama calls a lot of people to the White House to try to get a handle on this. Congressman Van Hollen, great to talk to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.